All right, welcome back to the Atlanta Construction Podcast. Today with us we have Matthew Simon, who's Territory Manager for the Garland Company here in Atlanta, Canada. And it's great to have you here, Matt.
Thank you. I'm really excited.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And excited to chat with you about the building envelope side of things and Garland with the one-stop shop model with all the great quality materials along with the quality assessments that go with it and the service. And maybe we can start with just tell us a little bit about your journey. I know you went to college outside of high school in marketing at New Brunswick Community College, and kind of a few things happened after that transpired to get you where you're at now. So maybe just take us through a little of your story.
Yeah, totally. I mean, my journey has been endless amounts of craziness. I grew up on a dairy farm in Irishtown, New Brunswick, just outside of Moncton. So always a lot of work. I have three brothers. And
you're an early riser.
Yeah, big time. So, we were the lead hands on the farm. Like, we didn't have workers or employees or anything like that. It was me and my brothers and my dad, and my mom was at home cooking and making sure that the wheels kept turning at home too, right? So when I'm the youngest in my family, when I grew up, it's so much work. Me and my brothers, I think, all agreed that farming just wasn't for us.
Right.
And once I graduated high school, I went to UNB in Fredericton, and I was taking arts. I always liked reading and writing and kind of that kind of thing, and I was really good at it in high school. So it's just naturally, that's kind of where my progression led me. And in my first year at UNB, someone came into one of the classrooms, this big auditorium, and they gave this pitch about university painters. I thought that was really interesting, and I got really excited about running a business and starting to make some money and just kind of doing something different in general. So I did that for a couple of years. I had a little small town Truro as my territory, and wouldn't you know, there's a ton of old kind of wooden shingled houses in Truro, so tons of painting needed to be done there.
Right.
So exactly like what you just said, early rise and put the boots on and get out there and meet with people. I was really successful, ended up being a Rookie of the Year for Canada, which was something I never expected at all. It just kind of, things happened naturally and ended up that way. So I went back to school, and I was kind of doing my second year, and I thought, arts isn't really leading me in the way I want to end up for a career. So I got out of it. I went to community college in Moncton. I ended up just paying for the tuition. It's ridiculously cost effective compared to what tuition is at universities these days. I took marketing there. It kind of went hand in hand because, again, I love reading and writing, and what I learned in marketing as well is that can implement all of those skills into campaigns and flyers and even just meeting and talking with people like we are right now. So I took marketing, and then still didn't know what I wanted to do for my career. I just went online before graduation, and there was community college job postings, and I just went through the list and I started emailing resumes. I fell into a job with an electrical manufacturer as a rep for them as well. And then just started my way in the office, doing order entry, that kind of thing, working my way through project management. Eventually, I got on the road, working with architects and writing specifications and things like that. I loved that company. They were great. I loved all of the brands that we represented. But at the end of the day, kind of, as you go through the stepping stones of life, outgrew the position a little bit. Sure. And then one day I got a phone call from someone at Garland asking if I was interested. I'm not sure if I even was at the time. I remember just, lying in bed with my wife and kind of mulling it over. Do we really want to make a switch? Because we were just starting our family at that time as well. Yeah. But ultimately, we thought, hey, if you don't take any risk in life, then you're going to get what you already have kind of thing. And we wanted more. So took the job and never really looked back.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I got here.
So you've got two kids at home. One's 2 and one's
3 months.
Oh, nice. You're how's your sleep patterns these days?
Yeah, there's not much sleep. Like we were talking about before. In the beginning with the 2-year-old, sleeps through the night. He's great. And then with a newborn at home, it seemed like too good to be true for a little while. She was sleeping all day, and it's like, I can get tons of work done with the kids. I don't know what people are talking about, but now she's a little bit older and hungrier and crying at night. So, yeah, we're on a rotation, me and my wife right now, to try to get out of bed and do those 3 a.m. feeds. But
For sure. Well, thanks for sharing your a little bit of your backstory. I think it's always interesting to hear, the different paths that people take. It's always interesting for our listeners and different people that might be considering university for engineering or college for architectural technology or whatever it is, and then someone come from a business or marketing background, and then just kind of find your way through the trades and realize that all those soft skills kind of apply, to project management and everything else too. So it's always really insightful to hear different people's stories. So the Garland Company, 125 years in business. I think they're like across 40 different countries. Are they predominantly in the UK, USA, and Canada, or is it?
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, just to give you a bit of the history, and it's so rich. I mean, we could do a whole show of the history. But it started in 1895 in Cleveland, Ohio. It started as a plastics company. Got bought out by three brothers early 1919 or something like that. Who transformed, the same type of tooling equipment into roofing and building envelope materials, and it just kind of gradually, continuously evolved from there. One cool thing, a stepping stone in Garland's history, is around, I believe, the 60s or 70s, when modified bitumen was just becoming big in the market and Garland was really going through an accelerated growth cycle. The company became 100% employee-owned. So at the end of the year, and this goes from, our workers in the plants, our office administration, and then certainly down to the sales force like myself. But at the end of the year, we get a statement of how well the company did for that year. We've been lucky even throughout the pandemic to see continuous growth, and everyone gets a piece of that pie at the end of the year. So it actually goes into essentially what is a retirement savings plan, and then whenever you leave the company, it gets paid out, kind of thing. But yeah, it's just kind of cool to have. I feel like, in a way, I do own my small piece of the company here in the Maritimes, and I really try to run my business in a way that encompasses that. I am, under the Garland umbrella, and with that comes a ton of resources that I wouldn't have otherwise, which is great. But when I sit down with someone like you here today, I really try to emphasize that what you see is what you get, and you get me trying to run a business and work with those organizations as if it's coming right from my work from home office kind of thing, right?
Kudos to the management for doing that, like a multinational corporation. To what better way to instill morale and incentivize it for all of your employees.
Yeah.
Some that are never going to meet each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to bring it in a structured way to.
Yeah, and then every February the statements go out, and then the past couple of years we've been doing just a virtual call, so you get 300 or 400 people on a call, and our president will kind of go through the statistics for the company, but it's more or less just a celebration of everybody gets their little piece of the pie kind of thing, right? And everyone has their drink, and to see a few hundred people raise a beer or whatever it is.
Assuming
on
those,
the call,
those are video
really cool.
calls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you get to travel
really
a bit for some things once a year within the company?
Yeah,
when
typically.
You're able to?
Yeah, typically we would. It's good to actually get in our physical plant locations and see the machinery operating. Sitting down and talking to people through the manufacturing process is one thing, but actually being there and physically seeing it go through the line and seeing what the quality assurance and things like that are physically like in the material is eye-opening as well, and you learn a lot from those processes. And we cover the entire building envelope, roof, walls, and flooring. I like to tell people anywhere where water can get into your building, we have a product for that kind of thing.
Right.
Roofing is our bread and butter. Garland has a ton of patents on different roofing products, and that's our product differentiation kind of thing. But it can be hard. Like I said, it can be hard to explain kind of the entire offering, and just kind of being able to physically get in the plant and see how all of those components come together. Makes it easier.
You're
to
talking
talk
about like so many different assemblies for roofs and envelope. I think a lot of people might think envelope and they think exterior wall assemblies, but the roof and floor, like you said, anywhere water can come in. It's kind of the whole 3D.
Yeah, exactly.
So for the Garland Company, like you're dealing with a lot of contractors, a lot of building asset owners, whether people in maintenance, a lot of roofing contractors and stuff. So where are like a lot of the materials that are being sold here in Atlantic Canada? Where are they being manufactured?
So I think under the Garland umbrella, we have 18 different factories. We have some Canadian factories for accessories, but I would say the bulk of our material is still manufactured out of Cleveland, Ohio. And actually, a cool fact is the original building, plastics factory from 1895, is still the headquarters for Garland.
I think I've seen that building on your website. It looks like a really vintage brick facade.
Yeah, exactly. So now they've extended it quite a bit, but they've tried to really keep the...
It looks like the old Leafs Gardens.
Next to exactly, right? They've got the real historical aesthetic to the outside.
Yeah.
And it's really funny because if you just go to Cleveland and you drive down that road, it's dilapidated buildings all over the place kind of thing, and it's just not upkept. And then you roll down the road and there's this huge factory and that front component is still
and they've left that purposely.
Exactly. So it's like, okay, where are you taking me kind of thing the first time I went down there, and then it was like, oh, okay, I see. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your position as territory manager here in Atlantic, and what you spend most of your time doing. You're connecting with local contractors for, you're supplying quality materials for roof assemblies and building envelope materials and such. But also, the thing about Garland is the service end, which on your mission statement, that's the best product we sell is our service. And you're dealing with these contractors or building owners or building maintenance professionals, and you're able to provide them with quality assessments too, not just maybe a one-trip visit for an inspection as a supplier or whatever. You're there for the duration of the project. Just tell us a little bit about the kind of overall.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be a bit of a mouthful because at Garland we wear so many different hats. That's one of the beautiful things about it is we deal with everyone inside of that organization that works with those projects, from the maintenance guy that might be in the basement all the way up through to the CEO that's signing checks for invoices kind of thing, right? At the end of the day, Garland is a full-service building envelope manufacturer, high-performance building envelope products. What we bring to the table is, when you really look at projects holistically, we're talking at the end of the day about large capital projects. And, we'll get into how we get to that point. But really, we want to take an eagle view of everything that's involved, from if you're a building owner and you don't know or don't have a technical background to determine the conditions of your building, well, what do you have to do to achieve if you need a new roof kind of thing to get a successful outcome there. So that's where I come in. A lot of what I do, like we were talking about before, we have a pretty solid foundation now, but in the beginning, a lot of what I would do is be reaching out to building owners, property managers, and we work a lot in the public space as well. So asset managers, those kind of people that are dealing with buildings every day. We go in, and the first thing that we do, whether you have a single property or a portfolio of properties, we want to take a look at just a single building that you may be having some issues with, or that you just need an updated conditions assessment for kind of thing, and kind of give you a look under the hood of all the services that we offer.
And so for our listeners, not to interrupt, but a condition assessment for that building owner is basically just an explanation for maybe people outside the industry, where it's like you're basically explaining to them, okay, if you can replace your roof now, you can save this much money, and this is what we foresee happening, and just kind of an assessment.
That's right. That's right. We try not to look at it as, if you replace it now, you can save money, rather from the opposite side of the same coin of how can we determine the existing condition of your building components. Everything that we deal with in life, building envelope related or not, has a life expectancy. So we want to be able to confidently walk into that building owner's office at the end of the day with a report that indicates what their existing life expectancy is at. Yeah. The unfortunate part about roofing that people will say is that it's out of sight, out of mind. So there's a big building boom, 60s, 70s, 80s, tons of buildings, infrastructure going up everywhere. And now we're getting to the point where roofing is at 30, 40 plus years.
Right.
It's been out of sight, out of mind for so long. The age of the building components have deteriorated and people are getting leaks. And a lot of what happens is we'll walk in and we'll meet with someone and they say, like, yeah, I've got a leak here, I've got a leak there kind of thing. And of course, the first thing that we want to do is mitigate any risk associated with water intrusion. So we want to take care of those leaks right off the bat. But at the end of the day, what really happens is if you're just doing that leak component, we have such harsh seasons here, especially in the spring and the fall with how cold it is, and then it might be hot the next day kind of thing. Or if not hot, but, we could have minus 15 one day, and then a day like today, it's 2, 3, 4,
Especially
5 degrees
in this climate,
outside,
yeah.
right?
You're in the toughest climate, probably.
Yeah,
all the,
exactly. So there's so much expansion and contraction with the temperature changes that it's really hard, specifically on roofing components. So by the time we get to the end of someone's building's life expectancy, when we go in and we do the evaluation, we say, the typical life expectancy of your roof is going to be 17 years. Well, you're at 30 years now, and yeah, you've got a couple leaks, but I'm more than happy to take care of those leaks, but I can't guarantee that we're going to get an extended life out of a few repairs kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. I'll put a Band-Aid on it, but just like if you were to go to the doctor's office for a broken arm kind of thing, we want to make sure that we're going to be good for.
So would you
for
provide a thermal scan and do all those kinds of things to
Yeah,
ensure
exactly.
that,
And that's all part of the assessment. The initial assessment is typically at no charge. And, that comes with, it depends, varies per project kind of thing, right? But we just want to go in and start relationship building right off the bat. The Garland program is not for everyone, and this vice versa kind of thing. So like I said, we want to go in and give someone a peek under the hood of kind of what things look like before we jump into big numbers kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's really the objective of the conditions assessment, is to give you the facts on the existing conditions of your building comparative to if it was brand new today kind of thing. So if it's at the end of its life, we say, yeah, we'll fix your leaks, but I can't guarantee, because of the climate that we live in, that it's going to stay leak-free for X amount of years. And I'm guilty of saying that. Yeah, we'll fix your leaks. You'll be good for 3 or 4 years before we have to replace the roof, and that'll give us time to, budget the capital. But, of course, we go through a harsh winter, snow and ice is so unpredictable, and then the next summer I get that call, the building's still leaking, even if it's in a different area that we repaired the year prior, and you said that it was going to be good for the next few years kind of thing, right? So I try to shy away from that now. Of course, if you're having a leak, more than happy to get the right people involved, the right contractors involved to mitigate those risks. But at the end of the day, our objective is to really provide, our value comes from providing the right long-term recommendations. If we kind of continue on with that process, now we've sat down, we've met, we've built a rapport. I've given you kind of the conditions assessment. In that initial report, we're also giving you your budgets for, is there preventative maintenance? Or how much is it going to cost to fix the existing leaks if there is any?
Are you writing the specs as well?
Well, yeah, exactly. And we're setting the building blocks, right? Because I also don't like to jump into meetings and just tell people, yeah, the roof needs to be replaced. It's going to be...
use our material.
Yeah, it's going to be a couple $100,000 and walk out of there and, put it in pipeline and you're good to go kind of thing, right? We're slowly... I think a lot of people get intimidated with how detailed our process can be.
Right.
And just jumping in and kind of... for lack of better words, kind of vomiting all the stuff that we can do. It really feels like we're taking over someone's organizational capabilities or, whatever their role is in that company. So we just want to go in and really make it as collaborative as possible and make sure that they still feel like they're in the lead in terms of the work output that's going to come out of whatever happens in our meetings. So, we lay those budgets on the table. We try to provide as much education as possible about those best solutions. And then, yeah, we're building those blocks and taking the next steps. And I'm not talking about your roof needs to be replaced, even if you did have the money. Hey, yeah, great, let's go out to tender for it kind of thing. We're talking about a 6-month process or longer, because there's so much time involved and energy involved in each additional step.
And we were talking before about, how sometimes, especially with roofing, obviously that's one of the trades that, even though construction is not seasonal in Atlantic Canada when things are really busy, roofing can be because of the weather. But for you, you're looking 6 months prior to the spring-summer months when things can be
that's
for writing
right.
specs and trying to handle these building assets and these condition assessments to say, hey,
Yeah, and that goes along with what I was just saying, because a lot of times the recommendation is great. The roof needs to be replaced. It's going to be X amount, thousands of dollars. And it's the person that I'm dealing with in the organization locally might have a corporate office in Toronto or Montreal or in the States somewheres. So we really want to, at a local level, everybody involved really wants to get the roof replaced, because it's always over a computer or a fax machine or big equipment in a manufacturing company or something like that. So it's immediate for the people working in those plants or facilities, but getting that money released to be able to go ahead and start paying contractors to get out there and get POs rolling and that stuff can take 3, 4, 5, 6 months kind of thing, right? So that's why we want to be as early as possible in that, so we can adequately prepare and get organized for all the preceding steps. So yeah, just to kind of give you a quick overview of what happens next. So say we come in, we've met a few times, and yeah, the roof needs to be replaced. There's some wall panels, flooring, whatever it is. Let's move forward with a project. The next step would be for me to start working on the design process. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because our business model, we can go direct to business, or we can work through architectural groups or consultants or, specialty groups like that kind of thing. We'll work with, if you have a project and you need some experience or technical expertise, I'm more than happy to get involved at whatever level, whether it's a general contractor doing a design build or turnkey solution kind of thing. We'll get involved in really any avenue kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But again, just to kind of stick with our example, if you're a building owner and you're ready to go ahead with some capital work, then we start the design phase, and we're looking at good, better, best scenarios. So if you say, yeah, I've got this, pot of gold here that's going to go towards a roof replacement kind of thing, we were looking at, or what we want to look at, is the life cycle that you're expecting. So are you planning to sell that building in the next few years? A lot of municipal buildings, schools and things like that, hospitals, we know that they're going to keep those buildings forever. So we're starting at that 30, 40, 50-year solution kind of thing, right? For property managers and things like that, we kind of start at the other end. We start at the lower end, and here's what you're going to get out of it. But we're not evaluating warranties and stuff like that. We're really digging into the design and the components of our design to say, here's what you can expect out of what we're offering. Again, it's a collaborative process. We'll review all the options. We'll get the necessary people involved to allocate the capital for those projects. And then when it does come time to, okay, we've got the money, everything's ready to roll, then we facilitate the procurement process. So at this point, I've got the design completed. I'm okay at AutoCAD, so I do my own architectural drawings and things like that. We have people that can do that as well, but I like to keep it all under my local umbrella as well. I do the architectural drawings, the written specifications, all that stuff. And the great part about being with Garland, it is such a big organization that we have tons of resources. So I say it's me doing it, the work output, but in terms of the information and the technical aspects and things like that, it's really a group effort.
How many employees are local with you? Or are you
just me.
Yeah.
It's just me in the Atlantic for the past 3 or 4 years, actually.
Right.
So.
Right.
A lot of the work I do is Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, even though I cover Newfoundland and PEI as well. It's been a ton of windshield time, which has been crazy. Yeah. But we just hired someone in New Brunswick, so he'll be up and running in February, and then I'll kind of help him do a little transition phase for him there. So. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it can be a lot of traveling, which is fine, The other thing too is because we're so service oriented, I'm not working on 80, 90, 100 projects a year.
Right.
I think last year I probably did 15 large capital projects where there might be, 3 or 4 or 5 roofs involved in each individual project kind of thing.
Right.
But that's pretty much my limit. I needed someone in New Brunswick. Otherwise,
Yeah.
we were going to stay kind of stagnant for a little bit, which I am excited about the growth. But yeah, so we do all of that design work. We facilitate the procurement process. So if it's private, we leverage our network of contractors. So as Garland, as the manufacturer and specifier at this point, we don't actually hire contractors to do the work, nor do we have our own contracting team. We leave it to the local professionals that do this stuff every day and leverage those relationships. We do have a pre-qualification that we get our guys to run through every year just to make sure that, the guys are paying their bills,
Sure.
that they're not, being sued by anyone or whatever, the unfortunate side of the construction industry sometimes. But if it's private, then if the client is comfortable, we'll invite our guys that are friendly
Preferred
guys.
contractors.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's public, we we just fly in the wind and hope the right guys are bidding it, kind of thing. And then we facilitate that on the back end. So if it's private, we'll do the drawing, specifications, all that stuff. We'll do the procurement process. We'll get as many bids that are required. We're doing the award. We're also doing the review process. So again, we're sitting down with the stakeholders in that project.
Sure.
We're reviewing all of the bids. We're picking out the nitty gritty details that the average person might not pick up on, why the prices may be different.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's missing something, or quantities are less here or more there, kind of thing. We're running through these before the award process so that we're, again, as organized and prepared as possible. We do the award. POs are issued directly to the contractor. At that point, of course, working for a manufacturer, we're specifying our own materials.
Yep.
So the contractor would just order material from us and work with us, or work with me for any kind of building components that they might need for that project. And then when it comes time for the installation, it's actually mandated by Garland that for 3 of every 5 working days, someone's on site reviewing the installation.
So you're QAing 3 times a week.
Yeah, exactly. So come, end of June, July, all the way this year, all the way through to the holiday season.
So
end
you've
of
been
December.
on lots of roofs in the last 3 years around Atlantic
Yeah,
Canada.
it's crazy, man. It's insane. And, I have so much
cold up
experience
there.
from that. Oh, big time. Yeah. And when you're 50, 60 feet up and it's November, the wind's blowing, I got my hard hat on, the hood of my jacket underneath, and I'm still getting brain freeze.
I was up on a
from the
roof
wind.
at the airport. It was a B. Stevens job on the highway. I forget the name of the airport, air cargo, whatever. Last winter, and the guys were giving me a hard time because if you're just 30, 40 feet up, like you said, it's like 10 times as cold.
Oh,
up there.
yeah, and it's so windy. That's the thing. It's
Yeah.
crazy. So, and that's kind of where it gets busy, right? Because we have to be on site so often and so frequently that there's so much driving involved to the various sites. This year, again, I'll be working in northern New Brunswick, Cape Breton, Yarmouth, locally in Halifax, Moncton, St. John, right? So, I've got dedicated days. Wednesdays, I'm driving to northern New Brunswick. Thursday, I'm going to Cape Breton, kind of thing. Luckily, at this point, there is so much organization involved at the beginning of the year that everything is nice and laid out and scheduled-wise.
Yeah.
So when I am working on projects, I tell people to be a little lenient with me on the 3 of
Sure.
every 5 days. I'll be here. Certainly, if there's any issues or anything like that, it'll be my priority, and we'll make sure that we're on site as much as possible. But some days, or some weeks, I should say, it's tough. The other tough thing is, and in construction in general, is I say 3 of every 5 working days in a meeting, but 3 or 5 working days in our climate might be 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So people are like, where
Depending
have
on
you
the time
been?
of
And I'm
year.
like, well, the guys only worked 2 days,
That's
right?
right.
I was talking
Or you
to
get there and there's no one there.
yeah, and that's the worst. Yeah. So, I try to make those calls beforehand now. But I was just talking to one of my roofing contractors yesterday, And we're trying to get a handle, a health check on the industry, I guess you could say. And one of my questions was, what are your lost days like from, that beginning of construction in June or July throughout the end of the year? Yeah. And they had 5 or 6 weeks of lost days of construction, right? And that kind of put it in perspective of me, because there's not, if there's only 4 working months that guys can really go out and hit safe. Production. Yeah, exactly. And you're losing 5 weeks, a month and a half. Or, around a month of work loss in the 4 months you can actually work. The logistics and scheduling can get very hectic. So, luckily I think a lot of people, if you've lived in the Maritimes, you know how crazy the weather is. So they're like, yeah, I get it. But at the same time, when your deadline is the end of the year kind of thing, and you've just lost 5 weeks of this major project that you're working on, it's like, how hard can you push the guys to work weekends and stuff, right?
What's your rapport like with the roofing contractors or building envelope contractors for that matter? I mean, I would assume when you're a quality contractor, somebody come to site 3 times a week for a Q&A, that's welcomed, and it's part of the gig, and sometimes people have different mentalities. So what's your experience been like?
Yeah, that's a good question, and you know what? It's tough because you gotta walk a fine line when I'm the one in with the client working on the specifications and doing the design. We got a year under our belt before we're actually getting the construction started. And then we get up on the roof. And I always tell the guys before the project starts, when I'm here to do my quality assurance inspections, it's not to get in your way. You guys are the professional installers. Yeah. I would love it if every project I could go to, I could just spend 20 minutes, half an hour, take some photos, walk around the job site, shoot the shit with the guys for a little bit. Yeah, exactly. And get off, send a nice report to the client at the end of the week. Everything's going great. More often than not, and it's like this in all of construction. I get up on the roof and there's things that are, not as neat and tidy or whatever. I think what a lot of the contracting side doesn't see is all of that work on the front end. So we have a really developed relationship with the clients that we work with. So when we're developing long-term solutions, there is a cost associated with that. So I feel obligated to ensure that the owner is getting what they're paid for. Yeah. So that can be difficult and it can be tricky because on a roof, again, I'm not there to tell the guys how to do their job. But when you're bidding on a specification, and I know those specifications so intimately because I'm writing them, when I'm up on the roof, I know exactly the detail work and things like that are written in the specification, and I expect our contractors to be fulfilling the requirements of the specification. Now, every project as well, there's things that aren't in the specification, there's unforeseen conditions, and I leave it up to them to determine what the best practices are, and we'll write a change order if we have to and kind of go through the project. I would like to say that my relationship with all of our contractors are great. I try to do my best to really ensure that they feel comfortable and that when we're doing a job together, I'm not being that nitpicky guy about everything, right? At the end of the day, I've worked on a lot of job sites where I really didn't have to get involved at all, and that's a lovely job to work on.
Yeah, that
kind
means
of thing,
it's
right?
a good contractor.
Yeah, exactly. And guys that want to actively work with the owner to ensure that they're doing a good job, that will call on the days that they're not going to be there kind of thing. Those kind of things go a long way. A lot of guys, not a lot of guys, some guys will get upset when I have to write a report to the owner to tell them the progress that's happening. So, we want to give them an indication of the schedule if there has been weather delays and stuff like that. When are we expected to be completing the job? But more than that, they want to know that they're getting what they're paying for kind of thing. So when I'm picking out those nitty-gritty details, I'd love it if they were all perfect and I could just send them photos and here's what's written in the specification. Here's a photo of it executed perfectly. Sometimes those details aren't as nice and tight as we'd like it to be. And, I have a commitment to Garland as well to ensure that we're not going to have warranty claims later in that roof's life cycle or whatever the project is as well. So not only for the owner, but as the liability for our company warranting the projects, we want to make sure that those details are done properly as well.
Because you're warranting anything that you're involved in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So how our warranties work is we take the 2-year workmanship warranty from the contractor and we substitute that with a long-term warranty directly to the owner. So if there's any issues within the first couple of years, it'll be up to Garland to call the original installer to go out and take a look and fix it if there's any issues.
After that, markets the contractors.
Yeah, exactly. And after the 2 years, I like to say one throat to choke kind of thing.
Yeah.
The client or whoever it is can just call me personally and say, hey, Matt, we've got a leak over, roof section XYZ. Can you come take a look? Garland will pay the labor and materials required to go out and fix out whatever it is. I was with someone the other day, and they instead of saying one throat to choke, they said one back to pat. And I was like, I like that more.
It's more
actually.
positive,
Yeah, exactly. So
it's funny though, like you talking about these different relationships you have to manage. I think in construction, you're always managing people's motives too. Like everyone has their own motives and they're collaborating together. But for the contractor, labor's tough. It's expensive. And anything that slows them down at all.
Yeah.
To a degree is a hindrance. But then you have, a building owner involved who their motive is like, when can my building be open for the first time, or when can it be open again? That's what their main concern.
Yeah, exactly.
And then for you, is your onus is to the owner. You have a good relationship with the contractor too, but you want to make sure you do your due diligence because you said something a year ago that
exactly.
And your warranty's got to be protected. So it's a lot of motives there to manage.
Yeah, exactly. So I summarize that by saying at the end of the day, all of our warranties are no dollar limit for labor and materials both. So that goes back to the one throat to choke. If there's an issue or concern, you just have myself to call from Garland, and we'll come do the investigation and figure it out and pay for it if there is anything that needs to be fixed, kind of thing. So, for our designers, our architects that we work with, for our building owners, and for our contractors, they know for any work output or production that's done on their job site, Garland is actually absorbing the liability wherever our materials are being used. So, at the end of the day, if there is an issue on a job site, there can be a lot of fingers pointing with so many people involved in those projects. It's a manufacturing issue, it's an installation error, it's a design that wasn't done properly. At the end of the day, it is a big relief for building owners just to be able to call me and say, regardless of what the issue is, get someone out here and fix it right away, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you say that about contractors too, because there is so much involved in the installation. Again, when you're working on a large capital project. So when I go out there and I'm picking out some of those nitty-gritty details, because the level of training and education is not the same for every guy on the roof either. So it's important to have a strong foreman out there that can lead the guys properly. But at the end of the day, you might have a new guy working on some details that aren't, totally 100%.
And maybe something got missed, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's always kind of little things.
Contractors need to do that too. They need to mix the labor scenario. You've got some journeymen, like you said, a really good foreman. Always, that's the most important thing. Foremen are
big time.
incredibly skilled and experienced, and then have some apprentices there too, because it's lower labor costs, but they're working hard. They're there every day, so there's always like a mix of
exactly.
different levels.
Being on site so often and frequently, and it's myself on site as well. So in the Maritime region at least, or Atlantic Canada.
All the more reason for why would, if I was a foreman, I'd love to see you showing up in the morning with the coffee and
exactly.
You're going to be there looking over at work and catching something that I might have missed today, and
exactly.
that would be some people's mentality.
And normally the guys on site are great guys actually doing the install. I love hanging out with them.
And that's tough work. Roofers,
exactly,
man,
right?
It doesn't get any tougher than that.
Yeah, it's hot, it's cold, it's hard work physically. So, when I'm doing my weekly report, so we're on site 3 of every 5 days, and then I try to give a weekly report every Friday. And instead of every day I'm there, I just do once a week, here's your progress report kind of thing. And we evaluate everything that's happening and what the future looks like for that project. And I copy our contractors in, so there's no blind side with the owner or anything like that. Everyone's on the same page. Big communication right from the beginning of that procurement phase all the way through to project completion. Want as many people, all the stakeholders involved in the communication process. So when I send out that progress report and there is some red flags that are going on the job site, the tricky part that I was mentioning is some contractors are, hey, this is the way we've always done it and it's fine, versus as the manufacturer, that's not how I specified it as needing to be done kind of thing. And, there's a bit of personal thing, emotional charge there as well with some contractors, and guys will get...
pride.
Too, exactly.
In their work, which is positive most of the time.
Exactly. So, if there is red flags, some guys get a little emotionally charged, and it affects the relationship. But at the end of the day, honestly, I try to tell my guys, like, hey, I'm here as an extension of your organization as well. As the branch manager or even the project managers that I deal with, they're not on site every day, so I can be their eyes and ears for those jobs. And what I really welcome is, if there is an issue, we deal with it on site. And then if it becomes, if it continues to snowball, we'll escalate from there. But I like it if I'm doing a progress report or something like that. I copy a branch manager or whoever is involved with that project in on it. They see the red flags. They say, thanks, Matt, for letting me know. We're going to get these issues corrected. Yeah. The owner's happy that, we've identified an issue and now it's being corrected however it needs to be. And yeah, again, everyone's kind of on the same page, right? But it's tricky because you don't want to point out too many things and upset your contractors either. So, like I said,
it's a fine line there. Like, take exactly. some insight and intuition to know like what's important. Enough to...
So I'd love to say, certainly on a personal level, at least we have a great relationship, or I have a great relationship with all of our contractors. But yeah, with so many, the money and owners and contractors, so many people involved, sometimes it does get a little bit emotional, but hey, that's life. And honestly, that's construction too. And that's what a lot of people love about it, right?
Yeah.
So, it's
so true.
It's good.
Yeah, so you've taken us through, the kind of the whole process from start to finish, where it's, you're involved with a building asset owner, hypothetically, and capital planning, the inspection, and then, capital planning and some, good, better, best, 3 different options, and then, involved in the spec writing and the tender process. And then, after that's the, supplying the material and then the QA. So you're kind of involved right from point A all the way down the line. But I guess sometimes it'd be different too. Sometimes, for some clients, maybe you're just supplying the material here and doing the QAs. For a contractor you have a relationship with.
Yeah. I honestly, because Garland absorbs the liability through our warranty process, I don't get involved in projects where we're only supplying material.
So you're either doing that whole step-by-step process we just talked about or nothing.
Exactly.
All right.
And the only way that we would differ from that program would be through an architect.
Right.
So if you're a building owner and or a municipality or something like that, and you're...
Well, you're a lot different than other suppliers you compete with in that regard then.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
So I'm more than happy to work with our local architects on building envelope projects, whatever they need, because I can provide the same support that we would directly for a building owner through an architect. We can give them the same technical assistance, assist in the writing the specification, the keywords or things, phrases that they'll need in their written specification, design, drawing, review. We're providing all the same resources just through an entity that they're paying for now.
Yeah.
And then, some, especially in the public space, building owners may be more comfortable that route, having a third party involved. But even for our architects, if it's mandatory, so whether an architect just is comfortable and knows all about Garland and is specifying our stuff without me having to get super involved like I normally would, I'm still mandated to be on site and reviewing that installation and making sure that all those details are correct anyways.
Right. So when it comes to the sales side and the BD side for you, it's architects or building asset owners, facility managers that you're targeting.
Yeah. And it goes back to, I'm not the guy that you're going to call if you have a leak and you want a Band-Aid solution because your organization doesn't have the capital to start, doing larger projects. I'm more than happy to reference our network of contractors, guys that have maintenance crews on the road that can go out and do that work. And that comes up all the time because, I'm more than happy to meet with anyone. I'm a leave no stone unturned kind of guy, right? So I'm out on the road all the time. But, at the end of the day, I'm working with the guys from that bottom level all the way through the top on making sure that we're not just selling components to your building envelope, but we're creating a program that is looking out for the life cycle of whatever your building is.
Right. So of the 15, you said maybe 15 projects that you work on per year, just for a rough number, but are most of those public or are a lot of them private?
A lot of it is public. We fit really good in the public sector.
Most of Garland's revenue, I assume, is in the public domain.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty big building asset owner.
Yeah.
But then if you were
exactly.
in that realm as a building asset owner, then Garland seems like a really good solution.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a great solution. At the end of the day, again, I hate to say it comes down to dollars and cents because it does and it doesn't. But for the right organization, even if you have one building or, a few buildings, there's so much service that Garland provides at the front end that you're saving a lot of time, but a lot of that money on the consulting side of things as well.
Yeah.
You get the technical expertise, all of the resources that you normally would to get your projects up and running, and you're just paying for the cost of whatever that project is.
Yeah.
And again, we're not looking at let's slap a roof on it and set it and forget it kind of thing. We're looking out for you for the duration of that building's life cycle. And how I emphasize that is another thing that I kind of forget to talk about, but it is important. Included in your warranties, so our minimum warranty is 20 years, and we have warranties up to 50 years, depending on what the assembly is or what the project is. So say you've got a 50-year warranty. Of course, there's a cost associated with how the quality of products with that project, but it's also mandated for myself locally, but for someone from Garland to physically inspect that project on a yearly basis for the duration of the warranty, at least once a year. So again, we're not the set it and forget it guys that are going to be your cheapest option, but we're going to service it hard as hell from the front end, and then we're going to implement a maintenance program.
Yeah.
And then we're actually going to be the ones that are getting up on that roof for the next 20 years to make sure that it's withstanding time kind of thing, right?
Most of the problems that building asset owners run into are roof and parking lot.
Yeah,
that's where they
big
spend
time.
all their money over
Yeah.
the course of 50 years of the building's life cycle.
Yeah, that's right. And the funny thing is, and I'm always tell people, your roofing today is the same as the roads, right? It's just different composition. There's SBS and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So in your roofing, there's more
Good
elasticity.
analogy.
But when you drive down our roads, especially in the Maritimes, and you're, bumping along the road because there's so many potholes, that's because of our climate. That's because of UV degradation. It's because of snow, ice, water buildup. In the same beginning of asphalt that we're using as the compound in our roofing. So when people are thinking about, we've had this roof for 20 years and it's not leaking yet, well, it's like, well, how do you feel about a road that hasn't been serviced in 20 years, right?
Yeah, not very good.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's going on in the roof as well, right? And that's the tough part. If it's not leaking, but it's a really old roof, it can be difficult to explain what's happening to that roof if it's not leaking. But that goes back to our expertise of just the information that we provide in that initial conditions assessment with all the photos and everything to show, like,
Sure.
if you see a large crack in the road in the highway because the asphalt's drying out and it's becoming brittle, well, here's an example of that same thing happening on the roof.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. Coming from West Prince, PEI, I've driven on many
Big time,
many
right?
roads where you're avoiding a lot of potholes.
Yeah.
You got to pay attention. I'm curious to ask you about your relationship with some of the local architects. Have you been able to build a rapport with some of the local larger architecture firms in your space?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've been with Garland for 5 years now, going on 5 years, I should say. But I think Garland has been in the Maritimes for about 40 years now. Right. We have a history with architects and structural engineers who typically work on roofing projects. I would say, there's enough brand recognition out there now that architects are at least familiar with us. Maybe not to the point that they're actually realizing the amount of service that they're getting.
Right.
But so there is an educational component there. But certainly, I would say in the past, 3 or 4 years or since I've been around.
Have you helped them with some spec writing?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Big time. We did. We've done a lot of cool projects. Again, in the municipal markets, a lot of architects feels like it's mandated to be involved. How I say get around it, but how the Garland program works is we write performance-based specifications. So we don't actually specify our material by name at all in the public market.
Just the performance spec. No actual product lines.
We try to write it, as tight as possible. So if it's not Garland, they're still getting that performance level. Right. And then
that's why I see performance specs all the time.
Yeah, exactly, right?
That's why it's in there all the time.
Yeah. So at least, if it doesn't go our way, then we can rely on that life cycle analysis and everything else that we did to build that performance-based specification.
So collaborative construction, right? I mean,
Yeah, big time.
I think, architects are designing so many different aspects, and if they can bring on someone to assist with this part,
Yeah.
why not?
And there's so many,
In some cases.
in all different sectors or materials, building components. There's so many guys getting in these offices and pitching different products and stuff like that. When I first started, I was kind of running into that, oh, yeah, another roofing guy in here kind of thing. The big thing for me, I am kind of I hate to say it. I don't know how else to say it. A roofing nerd in a sense. I really like to get into.
That's your job.
Yeah, exactly.
To be one.
Yeah, exactly. So I like to go a little bit farther than just here's one of our products and how it differentiates from the other products.
More on the building science side.
Yeah, exactly. So when I get into the factory and actually see them mixing the modified bitumen compounds, I want to know what the fillers are, how it affects the elasticity, the low temperature flexibility, all that stuff. And the reason is, and specifically for architects, when I walk into their office, we're not just pitching Garland as an organization or our individual products. Yeah, that's part of it. But at the end of the day, we want to actually be that resource so that if they're working on a project that's not necessarily Garland related, I can be that technical resource that they call, like, hey, Matt, I'm working on this and I need
so much value
something
in
I don't
this.
know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, and that's where it comes around, right? And that's really my journey with architects has been just that. Go in, try to do the pitch our products thing, don't really hear back from them.
Yeah.
And then out of the blue,
Everybody's doing that.
yeah, exactly, right? And then out of the blue, just maybe struck a nail with someone, get a call about a technical question, help them out on something here, help them something out on there, and then eventually build that relationship to where there's a lot of trust and value out of what I'm offering to get to the point of, hey, I'm working on a project and I'd like to bring you in because it kind of fits the Garland model kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's been about 3 years actually to kind of work up to that process with just 2 or 3 different guys. But there's so much value in that, and again, having for us as an organization too, having another third party working and have eyes and ears in those technical resources, not even just from a building envelope perspective, but they've got engineers for a variety of building components or whatever, and it just makes the project go so much smoother when you have all of those resources under the same hood kind of thing. So
Yeah, for sure. I was going to ask too, like on the roofing nerd side of things, what are you seeing now currently for Garland's supply of materials to contractors on these different projects that you're working on yearly? Like, is it mostly mod bit, or is there EPDM? Is there different things happening? Is there some newer stuff like liquid applied stuff coming into play?
Yeah.
Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a good question too. So I'll kind of take you through a bit of the journey through the industry. Today, present times, a lot of what's going on in Atlantic Canada in terms of roofing is a 2-ply modified bitumen, which is an asphaltic system that's typically being torch applied. So guys got big roofing torches and they heat up the rolls and then they roll them out. The bitumen is hot and it lays into the roof and it's fully adhered to whatever the substrate is made out of. That's probably the most prominent and the most popular type of roofing out there. Of course, there's tons of different roofing, more or less talk about single plies versus multi-ply systems. Your single plies being your EPDMs, PVC, TPOs kind of thing. I have Garland sells all that stuff, and I have a pitch for that stuff, and I have a pitch for the asphalt stuff. At the end of the day, again, I try to stick with a very straight and narrow message and process. I personally don't feel that single plies work well in our climate because there is so much expansion and contraction and seasonal environmental effects. But that's not to say it doesn't have a place in our market. It's just not what me as part of Garland is dabbling in frequently. Our most popular products are your 2-ply torch-on materials. That would be kind of the bulk of our work that we're doing locally in terms of roofing. And then, there is advancements in just those compositions as well. So,
What about the sustainability effect of getting away from Torch on stuff? Is there
Yeah,
is that an incentive too?
Yeah, that's been a
Enough?
big thing because, with torch, there's more risk of fire and things like that. But, this is all considerations that we're evaluating in the design process, in that good, better, best process. So, yeah, of course, if they can afford it, I'd love to move more towards cold applied, which the industry is slowly moving towards. The thing is it's more labor for the guys. They got to either trowel it on or pour these buckets out and squeegee the material on and then roll their rolls into it, kind of thing. Great systems because there's just like traditional asphalt roof and felts.
Right.
You have a lot of plies there and a lot of asphalt, a lot of waterproofing.
Well, it's probably more expensive.
But
the
yeah.
contracts too. I'm sure the labor is probably 70% of these.
Yeah,
roofing
exactly. So because there's a little bit more labor involved, they can be a little bit more expensive. So that's why the industry is slowly moving in that direction. Just like technology, as the cost comes down,
Right.
it'll be more popular.
Yeah.
But the big thing that's happening in the industry right now is the various compositions of modified asphalt that they're using. There's all different types of asphalt: SBS, SEBS, SIS. What is coming into now is coatings are becoming really popular.
Right.
So we're doing a lot more restoration projects. There's a lot of old prefabricated metal buildings, the Butler buildings kind of thing. You drive through Burnside, tons of metal roofs there that are, again, getting to that age where they're getting old and rusty and have corrosion and holes and things like that. Well, we're doing some restorative treatments. We're putting waterproofing coatings on top. It's about a third the cost of ripping off the roof or replacing it. And, we're extending that life another 10, 20 years, depending on the products that you
That's
use.
probably an option that happens a lot of times, right?
Yeah,
On
exactly.
existing older buildings. Like, we don't have to completely replace your roof. But
If the foundation's good, then, why
Yeah.
tear it all out?
yeah.
So those coatings are slowly transitioning into modified bitumen or low slope roofing as well. We can now give 20-year warranties on low slope roof coatings as long as it's nice and dry below the membrane kind of thing. But the cool thing is the technology in those coatings is polyurethane is now working its way back into the asphalt side of things as well. So now we're actually offering polyurethane modified asphalt, and that's your 50-year warranty.
And there's an R value in that, right? If it's polyurethane. Is that how that works? Or
Well, it affects performance-wise a variety of characteristics. Polyurethane is really durable.
Yeah.
So during the aging process, again, just like our roads, as the roads get brittle and water and all the traffic and things like that, that asphalt breaks up, and that's where you're getting your potholes. Well, by implementing a polyurethane or polyurea into the asphalt, it becomes extremely durable, and it's very stable as well. So it slows down that aging process, and that's why we're able to give such a long-term warranty on those roofs specifically.
because there's polyurethane in a lot of spray insulations that are applied
Yeah,
to
exactly.
the exterior envelope, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's becoming implemented in more things. And that's kind of where our technology is going anyways. Your traditional roof would be a 20-year warranty. And then, I don't like to say your Lamborghini and Cadillacs. When I'm talking about high-performance roofing, we're talking about an F-150 would be your traditional 20-year warranty versus a transport truck
Nicest truck
driving
on the
down the
road.
road. Yeah, exactly, right? But versus a big Mack truck would be your 50-year warranty, right? Like that thing will run through anything.
What's the R&D situation with Garland? That must be a really big part of the business with all these chemicals and
big
keeping
time.
up with the times. And
we have such a huge R&D division, and it's not.
Same thing with companies like Suprema, like the R&D
exactly.
is like vital. It's like the engine that drives everything.
Yeah, so when I think of, this is my personal opinion, I'll say it, preface it that way, but when I think of innovation, you can think of it a couple different ways. In terms of roofing specifically, there's innovation in, I have a product, how can I make this more affordable to a larger community? It may be eliminating some performance characteristics slightly, make the cost of it cheaper so that it's more available, And, you see that in technology is that the cheaper products they're not lasting as long. And I think of it that way in roofing as well. And when I think of Garland's, and this is such a sales pitch, I know, but when I think of Garland's R&D, we're taking a good product, regardless of how expensive it's going to be later, where our R&D is making good products better. So that comes when I talk about polyurethane infused asphalt,
Yeah.
Garland has a patent on that technology. We're the only ones that can offer that right now.
Oh, nice.
There's polyurethane, as you said, in tons of products elsewhere, but in terms of 75 square foot roll of roofing, we're the only ones with that product at the moment.
Nothing wrong with a good plug.
No, yeah, exactly, right?
Got to do it.
So, our R&D does a really good job at providing technical education to our sales force so that we're actually aware of those different characteristics and what they're working on and the innovation within Garland. And I know innovation is kind of a buzzword, but a cool thing that I like about Garland, and I published a study about this last year, actually, that our R&D department accepts one-by-one cores from anyone throughout Canada. Well, in the United States as well, but we have a Canadian-specific division in Toronto. So if your roof is out, it's getting towards the end of its life expectancy, we do a visual inspection. Sometimes if it's not leaking and it's towards the end of its life, the big question that I get is, well, how much life do I have left in this roof? And that can be a really tough question to answer based on visual inspection alone. Because if you say, it should have another 3 or 4 or 5 years left in it, and then we're in that scenario where it's leaking again next year, it can be really tough to have to go back to that owner and explain why it's leaking. And, a lot of times weather isn't really a great excuse, right? So to answer that question, what I do for my clients that I work with is as part of their roof management program, I'm doing one-by-one cores of their roof, regardless of its composition, so like single ply, multiply, whatever it is. I repair it myself. I send that core to our laboratory in Toronto, and then they physically test that. They'll use chemicals to break down the asphalt to see what it's made out of. They'll delaminate the plies, see if there's bubbles or anything in between the plies that had been affecting the adhesion. Maybe that's why the roof is failing or something like that. But the big thing is they do tear and tensile strength, which in roofing is the largest indicator of overall life expectancy. So you have a high value, your roof is technically going to last a longer time than a tear and tensile strength value that's lower. So when we can come and test cores of roofs that are 20 years old, if they still have a really good tear and tensile strength, that is a much better indicator than visual inspection of saying, you've probably got 5-10 years left in this roof, versus a roof that's 10 years old, it's failing. We send that core into the lab and they say, it's toast. There's no tear and tensile strength left in this at all. Then you have a physical report showing, we've done the actual testing on the roof membrane, and I'm sorry, Mr. Customer, but we're at the end. I can't guarantee that we'll fix your leaks. As I've been saying, we'll fix your leaks, but I can't guarantee that this thing's going to last much longer.
Building science is so fascinating. Like, as you're talking about what happens in the testing in your labs and stuff, makes me think of the crash test dummy websites, for the automotive.
Yeah, exactly.
Or videos for the automotive industry. But I know Roxel does some stuff where they'll set a piece of cavity rock on fire in a barrel, and they'll show how the burn time works and stuff. But I think those kind of things would be so cool for marketing, like just showing the testing that's being done.
And it is really cool. And when I first started, I have a construction background in a way, but I don't have a roofing specific background until I started with Garland. So there was a steep learning curve there. So every roof I was getting on, to be able to answer those questions about their roofs, I was doing core cuts, sending them to our lab. It takes a couple weeks. If we've got the time, why not? And getting those results and then actually being able to talk proficiently about what's going on the roof. And it's not just my personal opinion on visual inspection, A lot of people will, they want to get a contractor or whoever a lot of times it's just the maintenance guy that goes up and takes a look at the roof. Yeah, it's not leaking. Don't see any, there's no huge holes in the roof.
He's not doing thermal scans and core cuts and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So to be able to go up and say, we're doing a little bit more than just a visual inspection to uncover what's happening with the roof. And actually providing that information. And it goes both ways. I'm surprised roofs that I look at and thinking this 30-year roof needs to be replaced and it's got great strength. And then I'm getting calls for roofs in that 10-year range that it's, that's an unfortunate conversation sometimes. But
tell us about you're a member of BOMA, Building Owners Managers Association. Are you a member of that?
I've dabbled into it a
Dabbled in it,
little
yeah.
bit. Yeah, it depends.
I think a lot of people in your space are kind of in that realm, just because I mean that's where you're going to find your building asset owners and
Yeah, that's
developers
right.
and REIT groups and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's kind of the cool thing about stuff like what you're doing, right? Is we have a fairly niche message. We want to get it out to the people that actually work in the space or that could use our materials, kind of thing.
If it's not public, I mean your private targets are
Yeah,
pretty
exactly.
niche. Yeah.
The other thing is a lot of these associations are expensive, and when I say I try to run our Atlantic region as my business, it's because I'm paying for this
In a way it
personally
is.
today, right?
Yeah.
I'm paying for the BOMA subscription. I'm paying for that CANS membership.
Right.
I'm paying for So there's a certain amount of expenses that I accumulate that I'm not being paid back by Garland just to get some exposure, kind of thing, right? I say I dabble in it a little bit. Go to
Some events when you can.
Certainly haven't been doing a lot of it.
Events lately. But
Yeah, exactly. So I try to be, and I always tell new guys that I work with too to really get as involved in their industry as possible and make those connections and meet the right people. It can be a little bit expensive and it's tough to be able to kind of go out, and you're busy too, right?
For sure. I mean, there's so many things you can take part in too. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you're a CANS member, I mean, CANS is great. Everyone that comes on our podcast talks about CANS. It's and there's stuff that they hold stuff all the time, and it's like if you're part of BOMA as well, and maybe something else. Like there's all these different things happening. You got to pick and choose. And
so I've been pretty lucky actually. So the past 3 years, Garland in the Atlantic region has consecutively, even through the pandemic, had the best years in our history in the region. And that, partially just because there's been a boom in infrastructure as well. I think our market is doing really well. All of our contractors are busy, and that helps out everybody, right? And I'm just trying to keep the train moving kind of thing, right? So we have been able to establish a pretty solid foundation. And now, rather than use a shotgun approach like going through an organization to meet the right people, we're maybe using a bow and arrow in a sense of just trying to get some face-to-face meetings with the right people, not as spread out as I used to be, but rather identifying people that really align with what our program offers, and trying to get in their office and
be efficient with the...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, it's a double-edged sword, right?
It is.
I'd love to just meet someone and create that relationship and start working together.
It's like you got 1 foot in chaos and 1 foot in order. It's like,
exactly.
That's the way it works. This has been great. I mean, I'm sure we could continue on here with all the different topics and building science and learn about, Garland just being, how unique it is and just how much value it must bring to those target markets, whether it's public and then dealing with architects and the full process. It's really unique. I know I've learned a lot just chatting with you. Any final things you want to mention or?
Yeah, I will say I'm happy to do this. I'm glad I didn't really have anything prepared. It was kind of off the cuff, and
it's always best to do it. Just let it flow.
Hit a lot of really good points, and in my head I had kind of like an organized format, and we kind of hit all the points, but in a different way. That is really, I think it was great. I really appreciate being here. I think at the end of the day, we have a really great program. I'm more than happy to put the message out there that I'll meet with anyone that needs some help or that is interested in learning more about our program, kind of thing. Like I said, I leave no stone left unturned.
Exactly.
We'll get that face to face, and we'll figure out if it's going to work to continue working together or not. I love meeting new people as well, right? So, I believe in the Garland program, and more than that, I actually have a lot of fun doing what I do. So
yeah, you can tell you're passionate about it.
I believe in my personal program that I run in the Atlantic provinces, and like I said, it's been successful. So I'm just trying to do what the other successful guys are doing, right? Is just try to keep working hard and having fun, kind of thing. So again, I really appreciate you having me on. I was really excited, and it's still just really happy how everything went.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's always a pleasure to talk to people who are knowledgeable and passionate about what they do. I can't think of anything else I'd rather do. So thanks so much. And
you too.
Cheers.
Cool. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Atlantic Construction Podcast. Be sure to follow us on any podcast platform you use. You can also find us on LinkedIn and Instagram at Atlantic Construction Podcast. Be sure to send us a comment or a review. We'd love to engage with you.